Now with Jim Banks, Indiana Congressman, and Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and Fox News contributor. Congressman Banks, 19 senators basically signed on with the left to go right into the reconciliation bill. We knew this was going to happen. Senator Cassidy tried to debate me on this, and sorry, he ended up looking like a fool. Your response?
Well, this is just insane, Laura. We're trying to win back majorities in the House and the Senate. How do you do that when Republicans act like Democrats? How do we convince the American people to vote to give Republicans the trust once again to lead when they see stuff like this happen today? We know that inflation is on the rise. The price of everyday goods costs more, and real wages are declining in America. It's only going to get worse because of this deal. It's a travesty that Republicans would go along with it. Also, Laura, you have to recognize that the same Republican senators that went along with this infrastructure deal, that only 9% of it is actually infrastructure, the same Republican senators that denied Donald Trump an infrastructure deal that cost half of this, that all of it went to infrastructure. They wouldn't let him accomplish that under Donald Trump's watch. Why did they go along with Democrats and give Joe Biden a win on Biden's watch? I just don't get it.
Now, Newt, Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, she reacted to the passage of this bill, and it was instructive. Watch.
With all the respect in the world for the Senate bill, I'm glad it passed. I'm glad it's bipartisan, but it is not the totality of the vision of Joe Biden and the congressional Democrats. If we could have to do this much bipartisan, okay, but that is not the vision. The vision is to build back better.
I love the hand motions, Newt. They're rubbing Republicans' faces in this after Republicans were trying to assure our viewers and conservatives across the country that it would make it less likely that the $3.5 trillion would ultimately pass in some form. Your reaction?
Well, I mean, look, it's very hard to understand. I agree with Jim. I can't understand why a single Republican senator would have voted for this. It didn't meet any of the standards they promised. It isn't paid for. It isn't restricted just to infrastructure. It does have tax increases in it. It has all sorts of left-wing proposals and projects and ideas. It massively pays off Schumer in New York City with what I think is a enormously expensive tunnel that probably is larger than about half the state's share of the infrastructure part of this, and it has no really serious reforms in it. I can't imagine how these Republicans can go home and with a straight face suggest that they voted for something that's truly bipartisan. And of course, it's all going to get worse in the House because Pelosi's running a dictatorship and she has absolute control of her narrow margin, but it's a sufficient margin. So who knows what's going to come back? And I think from the standpoint of any conservative voter in America, this is a disaster. It's an unnecessary disaster, and it's a self-inflicted wound by the Senate Republicans.
Yeah, Congressman Bernie Sanders is calling the next monstrosity, which is the follow-on reconciliation bill, the most consequential bill since the New Deal. So to remind everyone, universal preschool, 2 years of free community college, adding dental, vision, and hearing benefits to Medicare, cutting carbon emissions by 50% by 2030, and an immigration overhaul that ends up being amnesty. It's just the tip of the iceberg, an enormous amount on the new climate core and climate change giveaways. Congressman, could the House possibly stop this?
I hope so. We've been called back the week after next, Laura. The House will come back into session. We will do everything we can to stop this. What the American people need to know is that Joe Biden is a socialist president. He's governing as a socialist. He's adopted the Bernie Sanders playbook, and this is a big example of that. But also on top of that, this will grant the widest reaching amnesty that this country has ever seen to somewhere between 12 and 20 million illegals, including 1.5 million migrants who have come into this country illegally since Joe Biden has been president. This bill will do that, too. So it's dangerous on many levels. We'll do everything we can to fight against it and stop it.
All right. A new poll, Newt, is showing that Americans' optimism after 6 months of Biden has taken a nosedive. It's dropped nearly 20% 20 points, excuse me, since May. Are you surprised that this agenda and what we're seeing at the border, obviously new COVID variants and so forth, that the Democrats still decide to go left when they marketed Biden as a moderate?
No, I think the Democrats are caught in the logic of Bernie Sanders and AOC and the left wing of their party. There are three, and I think Jim just captured it perfectly. This bill could be entitled Socialism Now, because that's certainly why Bernie Sanders is excited. This bill could be entitled More Inflation Faster, because that's what Larry Summers, the Democratic former Secretary of the Treasury, has been trying to warn them about. And this bill is a further reminder that the Biden administration is committed to treating illegal immigrants better than they treat Americans. And I think it's very significant that the Biden administration refuses to tell us where they're sending people. Last month, they had 210,000 illegal immigrants that we know of, which is about the city of Birmingham, Alabama. We have no idea where they were sent. We have no idea how many of them have COVID. We have no idea how many of them have criminal records. A friend of mine just told me, and we haven't been able to verify yet, that they're actually being flown into Hawaii. If that turns out to be true, and you're in a situation where you, the average viewer, can't afford to go to Hawaii for a vacation, but there are seats being taken up on a plane by an illegal immigrant,
yeah, unbelievable.
It'll tell you just how sick this administration is.
Yeah, well, there needs to be legal actions filed for a demand of this information. The governors and the states have a right to know what the federal government is doing to try to change their states forever. Congressman and Newt, thank you for the insights tonight, as always.